Today, I'm going to show you how to price commercial jobs like the two that I just sold right behind me, how I do it, and how I actually do the work as a solo operator. First, we have to start with actually estimating the job. When it comes to doing commercial work, especially, the best bet is to go out and look at it in person. So like I said, there's two roofs here. I'm just doing roof and gutter cleaning, and then doing a treatment on them. But just so you can get an idea of the kind of scope of work that I'm working with here, because both buildings are identical. This was the side that I did yesterday. So all four sides are almost identical on all buildings. It's a little over 1,000 square feet of tile, concrete tile roof, which are a bit different. I'll show you just so you can get an idea as to what I'm working with. One of the sides that I haven't done quite yet. That up there. Pretty mossy. Like I said, one of the most important things that really makes it a lot easier is to go out and look at the job in person. Go actually walk the property. If you're spraying harsh chemicals, you want to be able to see if there's a bunch of shrubbery that's going to need to be covered up, or how difficult is the cleanup going to be. When it comes to doing a concrete tile roof, I do this stuff completely manually, so that means using a steel wire brush as well as a paint scraper, going in between each of the channels of each of the tile, and then brushing the bottom edges of our tiles. But in some cases, when it is very heavy moss growth and it's really grown up for quite a while, I'll have to add in a third step. The first thing I can do before I even begin doing any brushing or scraping on the roof is I actually have to use a push broom and brush down the tiles because there's so much moss growth. So the little inconsistencies that you're going to find, differences from job to job, is really important, and really you can only pick up on that stuff when you are looking at them in person. Second step, when it comes to doing a roof like this, I already know that I'm going to be giving a discount. For tile roofs, it's a little bit harder to do a square footage price because so many tile roofs are different, whether you have the Roma tile, which is the wavy ones, or if you just have a flat tile. These ones are flat tiles, so they're much easier, they go much faster. But that is part of what makes it so difficult to just have a straight up square footage price for all tile roofs. It really has to change per the job, and that is another part of why you want to look at it in person, is to see what's going to make your job more difficult or easier than some of the other ones. But my last step when it comes to doing one of these estimates is I want to get a square footage measurement from satellite. So I'll show you how to do that super easy from Google Map, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, so there is two different types of roofs that you're going to need to be able to measure. So first of which, picture a square roof like this one is, except picture the ridge going all the way across from end to end. That is going to be a gabled roof. So in other words, there's none of these diagonal lines going across the roof, or instead of diagonal lines, those are actually called hips, is what those are. The other type of roof you're going to come across is a hipped roof like this one. So for a standard gabled roof, super simple. All you need is the length of the ridge itself, so the part that goes all the way across the building, and then the slope. Think back to geometry. It's rise over run. Although in most cases, when I'm doing this, I end up just guesstimating. I've been on a lot of roofs. And this one, it felt to me like a 612, and so I went ahead and calculated it. I'm not looking for the exact square footage here. I'm not replacing the roof. So all I'm doing is getting a rough estimate, and then I can base my numbers off of that. For a gabled roof, it's a little bit different, and there's two types here. So we've actually got the two types. We've got two sections that have a very short ridge, and then we have two sections that have absolutely no ridge. So if there is a ridge, you're going to have to put that into ChatGPT. At least that's what I'm going to use, because I don't feel like doing math. In the case of a hipped roof like this one where it has a ridge, it's going to need more information. So tell it that it is a hipped roof. Give them the length of the ridge, the length from the ridge down to the gutter, and then lastly, the length of the gutter run at the very bottom. And then, of course, you got to add in your slope there. So give it those 4 pieces of information, and it will be able to calculate that for you. So then, for these other sections that do not have any sort of ridge, all you're going to need is a couple pieces of information, a little bit less. You tell ChatGPT that it is a hipped roof. You get the measurement from the ridge down to the gutter line. You give it the slope, and then you give the total length, the total run distance of the gutter itself. You give them those few pieces of information, it's going to be able to calculate that stuff for you.
So now, super simple. All we're gonna do is put our cursor right where we want the starting distance to be measured. We right click, we go down to measure distance, and then we click where we want our other point. So in other words, what's the distance between these 2 points, right? So we drag it over there, and then that's gonna give us the distance of the ridge in this case. Then we're gonna need our ridge to gutter distance. So I just dragged 1 point down to there. I wrote that down. And then lastly, we're going to need the length of the gutter run. So that's what I'm going to work on right here. I'm going to drag this stuff over so we can get the total length. Once we have all of those numbers, plus throw in the slope there, put it all into ChatGPT, and it's going to calculate the area of that section for you. And of course, on a roof like this, it's a lot easier because it's 2 sections. Oh, there's only a total of 4 sections, and 2 of them are identical. I didn't even worry about trying to measure the gables because it's such a small percentage of the roof that I just didn't feel like worrying about it. So that's that. Now you know how to measure to get the square footage of any roof you might find yourself looking at.
So now that you've got an idea as to what I've been working with on this times 2, because I've got 2 jobs here, I can tell you I already know that I can do, when it comes to flat tile, I can do about 1,000 square foot a day, a little bit more than that when it's flat tile. When it is a Roma tile, so that means the curved ones, where you've got a low spot down here, and then it raises up, and then you've got another low spot. I'll try to find a picture of it. I can usually do a little bit less than that, so I call it 750 square feet or so in a day. And now, of course, this is pretty casual hours because I am solo, working solo. I don't want to be working myself like absolute crazy, doing 8-10 hour days on the roof. So I prefer to keep it between 4 and 6 hours of actual roof time because then I'm not so exhausted that I can't reply to messages, etc. So what did this job actually total out to being? So I can already tell you, I gave this a day price versus trying to do a square footage price. I'm using the square footage to help me with my figure out exactly how many days it's probably going to take me. And then from there, I can try to work out a price, but I don't actually do square footage prices on this one. I can tell you that I also included the gutter cleaning with the roof cleaning. That's usually the way that I end up doing this, just because I'm going to be filling up the gutters with debris anyways, but I also threw in a complimentary powder treatment as well, which ends up being worked into the price anyways, but makes the deal sound a little bit sweeter to them. And then, of course, the last thing, I ended up giving him a 10% discount because I was doing 2 buildings for 2 different owners. So when you can give them a break on doing bulk work, ends up making the deal sound even better. So each one of these roofs ended up taking me a total of 4 days. I've still got 2 days left on this one, but that's a total of 8 days of work. And I priced each of these roofs at a total of $3,942 after tax and including that discount. So that is the total check number that I am getting for each of these roofs. So that ends up being so a little under $8,000, so $7,884, $7,884 is the total job price for that, and that is not bad for doing 8 days worth of work. And of course, I really shoot for that $1,000 a day mark, which this is very close to, at least when you're including tax. But I really don't mind taking a little bit of a hit on that when it comes to 8 days of guaranteed work. Now, I'll give you a little sneak peek into how I actually do the roof cleaning, just so that you've got an idea, if you're doing one of these concrete tile roofs yourselves, how I do it, the little tricks that I use, and hopefully it'll make your job a little bit easier if you are tackling roofs. So I'm going to just give you a quick example here. So I'm just going to be working on these 3 courses. So as you can probably tell by now, using this tool is by far the most tedious portion of this job, but it really goes a lot faster than you think. Like I said, I'll end up probably putting in a 4.5 hour day here of actual work, and then it's just drive time past that. So once we have finished with our scraping here, we're going to then move on to our brushing. So both of these tools can be found in the paint section at Home Depot. And really the stuff is not very expensive. It's, I believe, like $75 for me to get all of the tools for one of these roofs. So 150 or so to do both of these in cost, actual hard cost tools. So this just standard steel wire brush. All we're going to do here, brush along the bottom edge of the tile itself, that ends up doing a really good job of pulling this stuff off. But this will really end up hurting your back if you only use that. So what I end up doing, I just use the Unger extension poles you can find at Home Depot. Literally zip tie that same brush to your pole here. So that's literally it. And that's why I usually save that one to the last. So once I'm tired and sore from scraping, then I got the easy stuff of doing the bit of brushing. Now, once we've got to this point, our tiles are actually clean. Now I can just blow it.
So unfortunately, my camera died right as I was about to blow off the roof, but that was about the end of that process in general. Really all it is scraping out the channels, brushing the bottom of the tiles, and then blowing everything off, doing some cleanup, doing the gutters. So really ended up going real smooth past that. I will go ahead and put some after pictures just so you can see how that side ended up coming out, because it came out really, really good. But that pretty much covers it. So if you have any questions or critiques or whatever your thoughts, put them down in the comments. I read every comment. And thank you for watching. I hope it helped in some way.